Hello everyone, and welcome back to Rollsicle. This is a bit of a different style of video. I don't know where the background is around us. I wasn't that paying attention when we were testing everything, but around
think
us,
this way.
somewhere, maybe that way, maybe that way, maybe
We
that
think.
way, one of the two.
It's in a corner.
You guys should be able to see the Rollsicle opinions on Foundations presentation / screen capture thing that we've got going here. So this is a different style of video, but one that I'm very excited to make. So, as always, I'm Nathaniel, one of the hosts here at Rollsicle, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host in Ashley.
Hi everyone, it's Ashley. I'm back.
She's here. She's here for only a little bit longer before there's going to be quite a bit of content on the channel without her, other than the Let's Play content, because that's been pre-recorded basically until she gets back, and we're going to try to keep working on that and maybe pre-record it all the way until she gets back. So that stuff should be covered, but yeah. All right, so let's jump into this. Rollsicle's opinion on Foundations. So for those of you that don't know, Foundations is the newest Magic the Gathering paper release set. So throughout the year, Magic releases, what would you say, maybe like 6-ish? About 6 a year?
I know that they're releasing 6 next year, but I just joined the whole shebang in August.
Yeah,
So 6
I
next
think
year.
it's about 6 per year. I think that's about usual.
That feels right.
Official paper sets. Sometimes there's a 7th one if there's like a reprint set or something like that, because it might be 6 not counting Innistrad.
It's 6 not counting Innistrad
So
next year.
there's going to be about 6 to 7 sets, although I think that's a new high. So yeah. Anyways, the newest one, and the one for the end of 2024, is Foundations, and it's also changing up quite a bit of different things with the formats and all sorts of stuff like that. So I'm excited to talk about it. I've got a lot of opinions on it. You've got a lot of opinions on it. We have someone that's a little bit more experienced, someone that's a little bit new, and no one that's been in it for years and years and years. So let's jump into things.
Woo!
All right, so to begin, what stood out to us most about the set? I'm going to let you take this one first. As someone who hasn't experienced a lot of other sets. So to put it in perspective, the sets that came out before Foundations, directly before is Duskmourn, which was a House of Horror themed set, and then directly before that was Bloomborough. Those are basically the only other 2 sets that Ashley has any experience with, and she didn't really experience Bloomborough during release. She basically only experienced once Duskmourn was already out. You did experience Duskmourn once it was out, though, right? Yes.
I did.
So, and then we have Foundation. So what stood out to you?
Like you said, the only ones I've really experienced are Duskmourn, and I've experienced the smallest amount of Bloomborough. Did not like Duskmourn. Did not. So didn't know how much I was going to like Foundations, but Foundations came out, and I love it.
So keeping it simple, what made Foundations better than Duskmourn? Because we're not talking about Duskmourn here, but what made it better than
What made it better than Duskmourn is the fact that I feel like there's not like really a set theme. It's not like, oh, it's going to be horror. I feel like this is very like intro to everybody. Like there's something that everyone can find they like about this. We've got elves, we've got ooze, we've got cats, flying, all sorts of different things, all in this. It's not like it also brought back a lot of old mechanics that I feel like people like to see. It didn't introduce anything new, which I liked seeing personally because I don't want to learn new things every single set.
I don't think there's any new mechanics, but I don't know
think so.
about Raid. That might be the only one, but I think that's
I think Raid might have been older sets.
I think it has been too. All right, so for me, what stood out most about the set would be basically the same thing, but even more so because I have seen these other sets, is a just generic theme. It's a very classic Magic theme. It harkens back to older days where I wasn't even playing, or at least when I was playing before, because I took a big break from Magic, of what they would call core sets, which were just these simplified. They were meant to bring in new players. They were the core of Magic. They basically just had the generic fantasy in terms of theme and art. So you had things from all the way to sillier cards that had more fantastical elements to your creepier, like horror zombie sorts of cards, but it wasn't the focus of the set, which I think is what really deterred her the most from Duskmourn.
Absolutely.
Is that neither of us are particularly horror fans, but I think even more so you're not.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But yeah, so definitely I think what stood out to me most was I was excited for it to bring a new core feeling to Magic where I could get people into the game without having to find a set that fit their vibe, right? Now, finding a set that fits someone's vibes can help get them into a game even more so, right? For example, the Doctor Who Commander decks would have helped to get you into Magic even if she wasn't already willing to get into it. But, and for someone like myself, Spider-Man next year would definitely do the same thing. But at the same time, I think it's nice to say, here's the game as its own standalone property and not trying to leech off of other genres and or other properties. So I was really excited about that. And then going with that, I would say on top of that, just having been a Magic fan for a little while now, seeing them introduce so many changes to Standard and making this Standard for 5 years is exciting and also just a really big change. So I can't speak to the impact of that just yet. We'll talk a little bit more about it later in the video, I think. But I know that it's going to be a big impact. So.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's all I had to say on it.
Cool. Let's move on to our next
Topic.
Let's move on to our next topic. I think I got stuck between the word topic and subject. So I just
think
went
so. You went
sabah.
Count as a blurb.
All right.
So, does Foundations feel unique as a set? I'm going to let you take this one first. I took the last one.
Okay, I think it does. I think it feels unique in the fact that it doesn't have such a specific theme.
Absolutely.
So therefore it feels unique, right? We haven't had that core set feeling where as mainly limited players, I'll be honest, so when we get to some of our takes, you got to remember we're taking these from a limited perspective and then a constructed only in a commander sense perspective.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at it from that stance, this really does feel like a unique set because it's a very simple draft and sealed format. It's also a very simple set as a whole. It has a lot of products that are beginner focused that they haven't been putting out in every other set, which is interesting because it didn't come with any commander decks. And I think that also makes it feel like a unique set because for once I can give this to someone and say, look, there's more to Magic than just this 100-card singleton format that everybody's playing. It's a great format. I love it as much as the next guy, but there's so much more to it. And as someone whose favorite part of Magic is limited and is the foundation of Magic, right? More than just the set. Limited is what it was made to do way back in the day. I think it's a really cool set for introducing people to that. So what made it feel unique if it does for you?
I think, like, to kind of bounce off what you were saying, like, I learned Magic at a time where this wasn't out. I learned Magic where Nathaniel pulled out a commander deck.
Yeah.
And just showed me some cards and was like, these are the different cards and this is what they do. It was rough.
As someone who's going to be a future teacher, I didn't do a great job teaching her Magic the first time around.
But he also didn't have the right tools. Since then, we've bought starter decks. We've bought, Wizards of the Coast also put out, like, quite literally, like, little, like, single color, teacher decks things that they have now that Nathaniel actually bought a couple of. They have also now put out all of Foundations, which is completely geared towards beginners.
Already a beginner set. On top of that, if they do get into standard, they're going to be able to use those cards for 5 years. So if someone does spend some money on it, these cards aren't going to drop in value as much as, say, something from, let's look at Bloomburrow, where in 3 years that Bloomburrow standard card like fell maybe or something like that, which has already dropped a lot in price. But let's just say it hadn't dropped in price and it went up to like $1 or something. That's eventually going to cycle out of standard and it's going to do it faster than the Foundations packs will. So these are generally actually a good pack to be opening, not only just for monetary value, don't open packs for monetary value, but also for just longevity of how long the cards are going to last.
Absolutely. So. I mean, but it truly does feel unique. Like he said, it kind of goes back to what I feel like Magic was supposed to be, which is not. As much as he's excited for Spider-Man, as much as I was excited for Doctor Who, and we own the Doctor Who decks.
That's true.
Like, Magic was not meant to be that. Magic was meant to be sitting around a table with friends, passing around a bunch of cards, trying to build a deck, either from draft or from limited, and just, like, building the best deck you can and getting a couple hours of just, like, good quality time with your friends out of it.
And that can totally be constructed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've seen Wizards of the Coast focus so heavily on Commander that it's unique simply as a breath of fresh air from Commander. And that's from someone who loves Commander. But the 26 or whatever, that's not an accurate number, other Commander decks that came out this year were enough, right?
Oh,
like, I'm glad we see a set that's
like, different. This is just, and I mean, next year we're only going to have Commander coming out, except for Innistrad Remastered.
Yeah, that won't have any, I don't think.
No, but every other set is going to,
so
and it's just kind of what the market is now. But honestly, it feels unique. I love the set.
All right, let's go forward with that then. So, how do we feel about the theme and flavor? We've already kind of covered this, so this will just be a really quick one here. I love the theme. It's just generic Magic, right? So you have your typical fantastical elements, whether that goes from the more sort of Greek mythos side of things where you have heroes and legends and stuff like that, all the way to the still mythological, like zombies and horror and those sorts of things. Absolutely. And everything in between from spellcasters, the whole 9 yards. And then on top of that, the set expands so far, right? It's more than just the actual draft set, which is what I know most closely, because the cards that are in the beginner box, which we have a great open No, starter kit.
Yeah, we have the starter
Right.
kit, not the
Beginner
beginner
box
box.
is a whole different thing. So beginner box is a whole separate thing. But even those cards, I think, are still legal and standard. But I could be wrong about that. I think they are. I know that all the cards in the starter kit that we did unbox on the channel, go check that out. We might link it. We might not. I don't know how to link it in the video. So it might be at the very end. But all of those things the cards are legal in standard, and they're all considered part of Foundation. So even though they're not as part of the draft set that I'm so familiar with, they're part of Foundations. They're also being reintroduced into standard, and they are more cards for these new players to get their hands on. So
absolutely,
I personally think the flavor and the theme of the set is spot on. It's magic. It's the IP that Wizards of the Coast created. It's not something else, and it didn't need to be. It never needed to be something else, chasing something else. And I'm really glad to see them kind of go back to their roots.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a lot of the same thoughts. Sometimes we have a lot of the same thoughts.
That's true.
We'll have some
We have some
headbutting later. Don't worry.
We have some differences coming up.
Absolutely. But like he said, I love that the theme is just back to like classic Magic. This just feels like what it was supposed to be. Like we play a lot of Magic, and this like arena physical Magic, like this feels exactly like what Magic was made for.
Yeah.
Like we've been playing it so much. And then like the flavor, I love the way like it all just goes together. I think that the art is just perfect. It's such a good set. I have no other words.
Ashley definitely really likes it. All right, so moving on from that, we have how do we feel about the card art? So the art is very specific. I know that Wizards of the Coast has been in a lot of turmoil with using AI for art, which is its own thing, right? Because I actually am in some instances pro AI art in the idea that it's not stealing from other people's resources, it's not being used for monetary gain, all of those sorts of things. But I definitely think that when it comes to magic art, when it comes to art in books for Wizards of the Coast, they obviously put out D&D and the other stuff that they have. So all of that stuff is really important to me, that it is artists making the art, and as far as I'm aware for Magic, it is. I don't think there's any AI art being done in the cards. Correct us down in the comments below if that's wrong. We could be mistaken, but I don't think so.
I think it is still all people actually doing art, because I do think that every card still has the artist on the bottom.
Still has the artist, exactly.
As far as I've seen.
Okay, cool. So, that being said, I think that magic art is phenomenal. It is what drew me to the game so many years ago and kind of drew me back into the game. And always, anytime I walk into a game store and I'm like, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Digimon's making a bit of a comeback, at least at the one that I look into, or that I work at. And so I'm looking at all these sets. No, magic art's so much cooler in my brain than any other set. Like, it's just, game. It's just not even comparable. Don't get me wrong, I think Pokemon are cute. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh has some kind of crazy style whack art that it can range. But Magic is just so grounded in that idea of fantasy that I love, right? That has, even in their most out there sets, it still is core to fantasy, and I think all of that's really cool. So I think the art and the theme and all of that stuff is phenomenal. And I am so happy with every single card. There's not a single card I've looked at and been like, ugh, I hate that art, or ugh, it just doesn't feel like it fits the set, anything like that. Like, you look at Dustmorn, and they clearly had, like, what was it, like almost like an 80s horror vibe. It was like an 80s horror vibe. So you have the dude with headphones on. Yes. You have the cheerleader who's dodging the zombies and stuff like that. And it's unique, it's cool, but it just feels a little out of place. Yeah. Whereas so much about Magic before all felt like it could fit together. Even if they were on these different planes and stuff that was going on, they were still able to fit together, and it was so...
cohesive.
Cohesive. That's a great word. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that how you feel?
I feel like it's very cohesive. I love the card art. 9 times out of 10 when we're opening packs to do draft or to do sealed, I'm not paying attention to words. I'm looking at pretty art. I usually end up going through my pack a lot faster than he does, and he's like, did you read any of the cards? And I'm like, yeah, I read them. Let me look back through those. Yeah. Because I'm looking at pretty art. Like, it's fair. I love art.
I do think the art is very, very, very pretty, and it's very eye-catching, and I think it's also more mature in that sense that yes. I really like that. As I was growing older, and I say older is when I started playing Magic, being like 10 or 11, it was cool to play with these cards that looked really cool. Like, I could get my dad to sit down and play Pokemon with me, and I could play out, Charmander. No shot at Charmander. He's cute. But I also really liked the idea of actually, like, summoning a horde of zombies and that sort of thing. Felt a lot cooler to me, and I think even at 21 years old, it still does. So.
Oh, absolutely. I also just love like the art is like drawn by people. I feel like when you look at like Pokemon cards and stuff, it all just looks like it's done by computer and stuff.
No, interesting.
It's like
I
digital
think
art
they
versus
are
like hand drawn
all done
art.
by people, but I think
It's digital.
if I'm
art
not
versus,
mistaken,
like,
all of the, and this could be completely wrong, but I think all of the Magic art is paintings, but I might be mistaken. At least some form of digital painting, but
one thing Wizards of the Coast is doing right.
it's really, really good art. I love every art that they ever, like almost every art. I don't think I've ever looked at a card. Even when it doesn't fit the theme, I still think the art looks great. So
yeah, like there's in Dustmore,
props to
there's
Wizards
like
for that. They're doing such a
bear
good
of
job.
spiders, and I hate that, but it looks so good.
Yes,
I hate it.
There
It
is
looks
a teddy
good,
bear made out of spiders. It's terrifying.
gross.
All right,
It's
moving
nasty.
on. Next, we have
Mechanics and synergy.
I'll let you take this one first.
Okay. I'm gonna talk to synergy first because we do have a slide for like we have something else for mechanics.
True.
So I'll probably speak synergy first, then mechanics. I love the synergy of this set. This set goes so hard with this synergy. Like okay, don't laugh at me.
No. I am all ears.
When we are drafting and stuff, like I feel like there's so much synergy between every single color combination, and there are some sets where you go back and you can try and just draft like whatever 2 colors you can, or make a sealed deck out of whatever 2 colors. They don't work. Like you can try to make it work and it just doesn't work. I feel like no matter what you do with any 2 color combinations, I can speak. It works. I don't think I've really, the only times like I've built a draft deck or standard deck or limited deck and it hasn't worked has been me pulling not good cards. Not the synergy of my deck not working. So I feel like synergy is just spot on.
Okay.
Your turn.
So I think I'm going to talk about synergy first because we have a mechanics slide, yes. But I'm going to talk about synergy, and I actually think it's one of the worst things the set does. But I actually think that everything that Ashley just said is true, and that's why I think it's one of the worst. Is that really good synergy in a Magic set is about not super weak cards, but cards that feel really weak unless they're put together very properly and very particularly, right? So what I noticed is that Foundations is a very loose synergistic set that if you have good cards and put them together, they probably do good things, right?
Yeah.
And for a beginner, someone who's learning how to draft, someone who's learning how to build a sealed deck, that is ideal because they can look at very clear listed when a land enters, hey, I have synergy, right? And that's great. That's a really good thing. It allows for them to learn what building synergy is, and I think this set does that beautifully. But because of that, I do think it's actually a very low synergy set. If you open bad cards, the synergy is not really there to make a great deck. If you open good cards, you don't have to try that hard to make a great deck, synergy or no synergy. So I do think that synergy-wise, saying that word a lot, it's a very low synergistic set that the cards are going to do what the cards do really regardless of how you place them together. That being said, I do think the synergy that is there is very clearly defined and easy to see, and that's why I love it so much. It's simple, it's clear, it's concise, and it also harkens back to very like the roots of Magic. Blue-white does flying, green-blue does land, these
like
things. Green-red does big creatures that hit hard,
Red-white's gonna kill you real quick.
Red-white does aggro. Green-white does +1/+1 counters and maybe some life gain in there, all sorts of stuff like that. Although life gain is the white-black deck, but still, they can kind of cross paths a little bit. And so it really harkens back to those roots of Magic, but keeps it simple so that people can build what feels like very synergistic decks because they're putting good cards in the deck.
Yeah.
That being said, when you look at other sets, some older sets, I don't know what a great example would be because I've only drafted so many of them, but I would say even like Murders at Karlov Manor, which is what I drafted the most of, but also even Outlaws of Thunder Junction, stuff like that. It was way more important to build into, let's talk Outlaws, committing crimes if you were going that route, playing Outlaws if you were going that route. If you were drafting in Bloomborough, from what I've seen, I missed most of Bloomborough draft, but from what I've seen, it's really important to be in those 2 creature types that are going to be your 2 colors, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to want to be playing off of that. And there's so much with like the red-white mouse deck is about targeting abilities, so you're going to want things that target abilities or the cards aren't that strong.
Yeah.
Foundations doesn't really do that. So let's talk about some of the mechanics that are in the set. They're pretty simple ones. The ones that we could come up with were Morbid, Raid, Landfall, Prowess, and Threshold. There's more than that, but those are the ones that kind of stood out that if they weren't explained on a card, I don't think a newer player would necessarily know what they do.
Yeah.
Right? So Morbid is usually if a creature died this turn, do something. It's sometimes at the end of your turn, every time a creature dies that turn, do something, or it's when this creature enters if a creature died this turn. So there's like a Banshee that can be a very good removal spell as long as the creature has died this turn, that sort of thing. Raid is if you've attacked, you have some synergy there, so that's usually in like your red decks. You can see it a lot on there. There's some ones that, you know, ping creatures, or at least ping creatures for damage. There's ones that create extra treasures that enter with a +1/+1 counter, that sort of thing. Landfall is very simple. It's whenever you play a land. Prowess is a little bit more complicated, so much so that I actually, in the prep for this, Ashley was like, I'm not exactly sure what that does, but I know that I do. So
Yeah, I said, all right, you can at least handle that one if I handle any of them.
Prowess is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So Prowess is your spell slinging decks usually, right? Usually blue-red, right? You cast 1 or 2 or maybe 3 if you're lucky non-creature spells, and suddenly your creatures with prowess all have +3/+3 until end of turn. But that doesn't sound great. Well, if you're playing blue-red, you're probably the 3 spells you cast also buff your creatures usually, right? So now they're being buffed by the spells you cast and buffed by the prowess, and maybe they're also being buffed by I don't remember the name of him right now. The flying blue-red staple uncommon.
Niv Mizzet?
No, that's the dragon. That's mythic, I think.
Never mind. I didn't say anything.
Balmor.
That one
is the name of him, the flying wizard, blue-red. That, well, it gives, I think it's like +1/+0 and trample. So then you do all that prowess stuff, and you're giving them trample. It can kill really quickly.
Oh yeah.
And then lastly, we have Threshold, which is I think it's 7 cards in your graveyard, but it might just be a number. I don't know for sure.
I think it is just a number.
Okay, cool.
I think the one that we're thinking of is 7 because it's one that we've seen a lot.
Yeah. I've seen the rare that creates the Leviathan octopus, the like 8/8 octopus. I know that one is 7 cards. I'm like 99.9% sure.
Yeah.
But Threshold is on other cards as well. So it's have that many cards in your graveyard, get an extra benefit essentially. Yeah. And those are the ones that we could come up with.
And realistically, the ones that I think that we've seen the most in this set are going to be Landfall.
Yeah, that comes up
Raid.
a lot. Yeah.
Maybe Threshold. But realistically, Morbid and Prowess have just really not been coming up. I feel like we've seen more Morbid than Prowess.
They're not on a ton of cards, but they are out there, and they do fill into certain strategies.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely.
But yeah, how do you feel about these mechanics? Just a quick. I know we've probably already been recording for way too long, but a quick. How do we feel about them?
Don't love Morbid.
Okay.
Don't love Threshold.
We're going through
don't love doing anything with my graveyard. I don't like black. But can't stand it. Raid, never played it. I don't play red. Love Landfall. Don't love Prowess.
Is her favorite, guys. Rakdos is her favorite.
Totally. Don't love Prowess. It's been played against me far too many times.
I'm sorry, wait, the green player likes Landfall?
Crazy. I know. Anyways, your turn.
I don't know if I need to go through them individually, but my gosh.
I mean, I won't quick.
I don't know if I need to go through them. Well, okay, so Morbid I think is difficult to trigger, right? I think it's a bad mechanic in the sense that you shouldn't be relying on another creature dying. There sometimes, especially in draft, again, we're going to come all of these from a draft perspective.
Yeah.
Only because this changes immensely in like Commander and other constructed decks, and it depends on your deck. If your deck kills a lot of things, Morbid is great. If your deck doesn't kill anything, don't run Morbid, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so from a draft perspective, Morbid's just hard to trigger. It's inconsistent. I don't like it that much. Raid is actually pretty good. Most of the time, you can attack. If you have completely open mana and you're attacking with something small, they're going to let it through. And that's already a good thing in the sense that you're getting some free damage off, and now you just get even more benefit from it because they have to consider, they could just be attacking for raid. But if they do block, that also gives you more chances to get them with a combat trick or something like that. So I like raid in the sense that it heightens the moment-to-moment instant speed. Do I block? Do I not? Those decisions are what I love so much about limited, and it enforces those even more so. It's like, okay, are they just attacking for a raid trigger, or are they not? What's going on here? Landfall is classic, but I don't necessarily think it's crazy. It's nice to benefit off of your lands, and I think it goes crazy not in limited, right? You can build decks around Landfall that just go insane. Prowess is one of those that I have yet to really build well. It's tough to build right, and I'm still learning. So similar to you, though I know what it does, and I recognize its power, I do not often build red-blue. And you can ask her when we were playing Commander, I have a red-blue precon, the Spellslinger one from
Oh,
Thunder
yeah.
Junction. Completely unupgraded. I know that she goes insane when you upgrade her, but completely unupgraded. I was struggling to get that deck to do anything, and
Yeah.
I was trying my best. I was casting like 4 things a turn, making some birds that just immediately died. It was bad.
I think
And
I won
then
that game.
Threshold is okay in Limited, and I think it's another one that's great in Commander because you're going to hit 7 cards in your graveyard. If you have a deck that does that, super quick. You're going to do
Yeah.
it so fast. So, pretty good stuff.
Yeah, honestly. All right, now for this next section, we've got overrated cards and
All right,
underrated cards.
Let's talk some cards.
Nathaniel will give his overrated, I'll give my overrated,
All right.
then his underrated, and my underrated.
So we did a quick glance over the set. So there might be cards that come to mind or that we talk about later or earlier that are really good cards. We might give some honorable mentions, but these are the ones that came to our mind when we were creating this. My top 3 overrated cards that I think get a little too much hype. We have, first off, Doubling Season. Oh goodness, there go all our subscribers. Okay.
You've lost me already.
All right, hear me out.
Done.
I am saying this from a limited perspective. This card is horrible, and I have seen so many people take it, and they still put it in their deck. I am of the same. I took it one time, and I put it in my deck. It wasn't worth it. It shouldn't be in it. If you're drafting physical Magic, I will never get upset at you for taking a Doubling Season because you just earned yourself the entire draft back, right? But if you're on Arena, or if you're actually drafting just someone's cube or something like that, or when I say cube, I mean a set cube because we're talking about Foundations, right? Doubling Season just doesn't get it done here, right? As a 5-drop, it's not doing the work that you need in Limited. Now, I recognize it goes insane in at least Commander. I do think as a 5-drop, it's probably not that good in Standard, Modern, Pioneer, any of those formats, because they just tend to end by turn 5 or 6.
I mean, possibly.
If I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure I used it against you once. I know that we pulled one in one of the drafts that we did. And I'm pretty sure I used it against you, and I think it actually worked okay.
Yeah, I mean, in a draft, it can do stuff. It's just
It's hard.
Almost any other 5-mana thing, in my opinion, is probably going to do better, right? Because
Unless you're specifically making something that's going to have tokens coming out
and it does nothing if you're losing and have nothing, right? If you're, please, I just need a big creature, 5-drop, pull off the top, and it's Doubling Season. You know, It does literally nothing. So that is my little, like, one that's up there. Okay, the other 2 that I put up there. We have Good Fortune Unicorn. I do not like this card, again, from a limited perspective, but it's also just not that great. It is a good card in Commander if you're building +1/+1 counters. I'm going to try to stop saying that. Any card is basically good in Commander if you're building around that card, right? There are horrible 1-cent cards that work great in like a Feather deck because she just wants super cheap instants and maybe sorceries, I don't know, to be cast on her, and then you just cast them every single turn. For the record, Feather basically says instants that you cast to her, you can like keep casting.
Oh, okay.
So you cast something that's like draw a card and then you get it back, and then you draw a card and then you get it back, and then you draw, and it's a stupid cheap card that just lets you keep doing those sorts of things.
Cool.
And it gives her like First Strike and Indestructible. Those combat tricks are super powerful in a Feather deck.
I believe that.
But they're not great cards, Anyways, I don't like this, again, from a limited perspective. It's a 3-drop 2/2. There's so much toughness removal in this format, right? It can get stabbed. It can get Bolt Lightning. And then if it's later and they don't want you to have it, there's still a lot of other removal. There's all sorts of stuff. And the 2 power and 2 toughness just really isn't going to do anything. It does nothing the turn it comes out, so it has to survive. And it's probably not going to. And it's not a good attacker or a blocker because it's a lower power and toughness than a vanilla creature at its mana cost. So don't like it very much. All right, last one, 9 Lives Familiar. I'm not going to repeat myself. It's great in the right deck, yes, in Constructed. But it just doesn't do anything. I was so excited for this when it got revealed. I thought it was going to be a great, chump blocker or something like that. But it works if you have the Hungry Ghoul or something like that, but it's just not what I thought it would be. So these are the 3 that anytime I see them, I'm probably passing them up. Very rarely am I going to grab any of these. So I wanted to go ahead and put those as my 3 overrated cards, because I hear a lot of people talking about these cards, and I don't think they're that great outside of, Doubling Season is broken in like everything that's not limited.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah. All right, take us away.
I don't agree with 9 Lives Familiar. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's a great card. But, it's okay. All right, my overrated. I'm about to lose all y'all. Heir Apparent. Get it out of here.
Crazy.
It's not good. It's, okay. Hear me out. So, we play Draft and Limited, right? That's like primarily what we do.
Yeah.
Or we play like precons. But primarily we're playing just good old Draft and Limited with Foundations.
Yeah.
Heir Apparent's not good. if you're drafting with your buddies, or if you're drafting on Arena, and you see a heir apparent, don't take it. We've drafted so much. We've opened so many packs.
But what about the God run?
We've opened so many packs on Arena. Do you want to know how many heir apparents we've seen? Not that many. It's never worth it. Don't take it. Don't use up a card that you might need later.
We have probably done, 6 different limited things or something like that with physical Magic,
least.
and I think
That's
we've
just
opened
physical.
And up until the last time we opened none, and then the last time we happened to open 2, and again 2 was still not enough.
No, it
to
did
put
nothing
it in a
in
deck
my deck.
and do anything.
I put it in my deck. Mm-hmm. It lost all its credibility with me that day.
That's fair.
Anyways, yeah, not great. Don't take it. And even if you do put it into any deck, because it does say that you can have a deck can have any number of cards named Heir Apparent, so you can put in Commander, have as many as you want, whatever. Yeah. It's like a $5 card. Why? You're going to need more than 2 at very least. 2 doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say overrated. I agree in the sense that it's just overpriced, right?
Absolutely.
And it's going to be because it's one of those have as many as you want in your deck, right? So the demand for the card is just through the roof, especially because it's in standard. And oh wait, it's in standard for 5 years. I'm excited for that.
It's only going to get
It's
worse.
also going to stay expensive. It's going to continue to be a very expensive card. So.
Because, I played with 2 in my deck and it didn't work. It just didn't. There was nothing happening. You're going to need so many of these. You're going to spend so much money just on the Heir Apparents.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the standard deck probably runs 24 of them.
I believe that.
Like that. Which would be $120 of just Heir Apparent, right? And
that's one card.
You're in white, so you're still going to be running Get Lost and these other cards that are white.
Also cost money.
That are not cheap cards, so yeah. Anyways.
So I agree with that. Exsanguinate, it's not a good card. It's just not.
I don't know if that one is very popular, but it might be in constructed and stuff.
I think it is in constructed just because we also had so many other black cards come out that had lose life, gain life, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. It'll deceive you.
It will.
It sounds
so good, right? 2 black, pay X. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. It sounds so good.
Oh, it's meant for Commander. That each opponent is screaming its name.
Yeah. It sounds so good, right? It's not. It's just not.
Yeah, because that's
you have to play it as a sorcery. So you just have really nothing in your hand at that point that you want to play.
That's true.
And then to really make it worth it, even if you do play it in Commander, which it's screaming Commander, you start with 40 life. You're not going to have 30 lands. At most, you might, if you play it late in the game, you might get 8 life out of this. And you have to have 10 lands and nothing else you want to do.
Realistically, if your opponent's at 10 health, you have to pay 12 to win the game with this card.
Yeah.
And if they're at 11 health and you only have 12 mana, it doesn't win. But if I spend 12 mana on other cards, it's still going to win.
Exactly. There are better things that you can spend your mana on.
Rise of the Dark Realms plus another card, because Rise is only 7 or 8 mana, which is it's the one that gets all creatures and all graveyards. That's just a better use of the mana.
It just is. It's just better.
Now, that's a mythic versus an uncommon, but still.
Still.
All right, on to that last one. This is from the starter kit.
This is from the starter kit. We talked about this in the starter collection unboxing. This card's high in value. I think it might be because of the art. It's also just because it's 10/10 for 5, if my brain is counting the trees right.
Counting the trees.
They're trees. Okay, Counting 5 red, they're trees. Green pips. I know what they're called. Thank you. But I call them trees. Thanks.
It's gonna cost me 2 skulls and 3 more. That's. I'm gonna play a tree, a skull, and.
That's how I play Magic from now on, y'all. No, I just think that this card. Okay, great. It's a 5 cost 10/10. That sounds great, right?
No.
When are you gonna have 5 green?
In a mono green deck.
But other than that, when are you gonna have 5 green?
No, it's only played in mono green, and even then, 5 mana for a 10/10 that does nothing. No trample.
Nothing. It's just a 10/10.
It doesn't even have reach. Bro is above the trees in his own art, and it doesn't have reach. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
I didn't even realize that. That's even worse.
No, he's up with the birds. Look at that. No,
anyways,
if you guys can't see the power toughness, because we are blocking it, if I'm not mistaken.
I think we are.
It is a 10/10.
It's a 10/10.
I'm also going to add on here. I'm so sorry I've been talking over you most of the time, but anyways.
Y'all, get a load of this.
I know. Anyways, point I was going to say, I'm going to just add on a little side tangent here. Overrated in the sense that I don't like these full art cards, okay?
No.
Literally top to bottom full art cards. This one, perfectly fine because it's just a 10-10.
Yeah.
But they will do full art cards like this with cards that have rules text. And I don't know what those cards do necessarily, right? So, like, I saw one earlier, Sakura Tribe Elder. It's a common card. I happen to know what it does. She's not going to know. And the full art of that card is not going to tell her what it does.
No.
So
if I pull that card in anything, I'm screwed.
She might think it's an art card.
I know what the art cards say art card on the back, okay? I'm smart enough for that.
But a very new player?
But a very new player's not going to know
They might not know.
And y'all are not even going to know what that card
might
does.
not know.
Like, honestly, could not have told you that a Giganosaurus doesn't actually have any text.
Realizing this video is going to be longer
It's
than
fine.
we thought.
Y'all are
Jumping
gonna be
forward.
okay.
Jumping forward.
Underrated. Go.
All right, here we go. Let's be quick here. We've got the Treetop Snare Spinner. This is my classic Spider Boy. Not only am I a massive fan of Spider-Man, but I am a massive fan of that spider because it is putting in the work in limited. Again, I know that in constructed and stuff like that, this isn't going to be really useful. Though, if you are in a +1/+1 counter deck, having a consistent pay mana, get a +1/+1 counter isn't bad, right?
Because it doesn't cap it.
This is an example of where like doubling season would technically benefit, right? But it's also 5 mana, get an extra 1 counter with doubling season, so it's not crazy. But point being, it's got reach, it's got a big butt, it's got death touch. That's what high toughness means, okay? Or that means high toughness, okay? It's a commonly used thing. It's commonly used. Someone in the comments tell Ashley it's commonly used. Anyways, all right? But genuinely, reach, death touch, decently high toughness. If you don't want me to use any sort of what is the word when you say I don't know. Anyways.
I don't know.
Point being, and late game, you have nothing to do with mana and limited, and you're just kind of pulling lands. You can do something with this card in the fact that it's going to put +1/+1 counters on things. So, absolutely great card. Next one I have here, Sylvan Scavenging. This is like a 20-cent card, and I think it's great. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. That's not that great. That's like 3 mana. Do what the Treetop Snare Spinner does for 3 mana. But, to be fair, you only pay it once. But it's also an enchantment. As someone that really likes Enchantress, I think it's a great card. And then on top of that, you're probably going to have a creature with power 4 or greater, and then you're just putting 3/3s on the board. And again, now, I recognize the fact that every single one of these cards either creates tokens or counters, so my whole point about doubling season is a little weak. But again, I'm not saying doubling season isn't good.
Kill him for it in the comments.
Doubling season is great in non-limited formats. Anyways. But yeah, so Sylvan Scavenging, frickin', it will take the game in limited, and I personally think in constructed, it's still a really good card, so I'd be running it. And then lastly, we have Hungry Ghoul. I have seen this card pop off so much because, mind you, because the sacrifice another creature thing is at instant speed. So it's basically a walking combat trick. They can swing in this thing with as a 2/2 with 2 or 3 creatures that they can sacrifice if they need to. And if you block it with a 3/3, a 4/4, a 5/5, they can choose to sack all those creatures and get it up to whatever power toughness it needs to be to survive. And I just think that that's it's unseen how good this would be. Right?
Absolutely.
I read that and I was like, I'm not really going to want to pay 1 and lose a creature just to put a +1/+1 counter on it. And again, it's also a +1/+1 counter, right? So this power toughness doesn't go away. Now, you need some tokens to be able to sack that too, but if it's in constructed, you're making your tokens. If it's in limited, there's a lot of things that are making tokens. So truly, I just think all 3 of these cards absolutely pop off. I would never be playing limited and pull this off the top of the deck and be upset.
No,
so
fair.
I think these 3 are my picks. So let's see yours.
All right, mine.
Oh, it bangs me. Only one of them. I love the first
Hush.
2. Look at him or her.
Hush.
They're so good.
Don't talk about my baby. That's my baby.
All right.
You don't ever pick the helpful hunter.
I do sometimes.
No, he doesn't. All right, my first one, helpful hunter. Isn't he cute? I love him. That's my baby. Every time we're watching anything that has this card in it, I'm just like, pick that one.
It is Ashley's only viable association with cats. She's allergic to cats, like badly.
I am.
So
like real bad. But it's
she's
okay.
not allergic to the helpful hunter.
No, I'm not. He's so cute. Look at his little feather. His flavor text is so cute. You guys, seriously. Anyways, he draws you a card. He's also just like a little 1/1. He's so cute. I love him. No more needs to be said. He's cute.
Great example of what you
pulls the
should
card.
pay 1 and sack and kill to the Hungry Ghoul. I mean, realistically, it is a good example of it because
This will be the last video that Nathaniel airs on.
once it enters, you've drawn the card. Now it's just a 1/1 that you can sack and get a +1/+1 counter.
And if it ends up in your graveyard, there are other cards.
And if it ends up from your graveyard, you can
There's
bring
a
it
card,
back.
I don't know what it is.
Well, you can do it with the panda. You can do it back with Zombify. You can do it with.
There was something I
There's
played.
something macabre, I think, that lets you go get creatures and put them back in your hand. You can do all sorts of things like that.
There's a lot of things, like bring things back.
The
Love the Helpful Hunter.
3/1 life linker or something like that can also go get a 2 cost or less mana cost, so it can go get that one. All of those cards can bring them back.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Fake Your Own Death. Y'all heard me say how much I hate black as a color? Yeah, I know, shocker. Fake Your Own Death. I pulled like 3 of them in a draft we did recently, and I played about 2 of them. Love this card.
It's a really fun combat trick.
Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains when it dies, return to the battlefield, and you get a treasure token. Yeah. Why would you not do that? Why would you not play that?
It's a really good
you
combat.
get
it's
mana.
A really good combat trick.
It's amazing. And I see people pass this card up all the time in draft stuff. And they'll be drafting black. And I'm like, why are you not taking it? Take it. It's a good card. Are you going to let me?
I'm going to let you. Are you just going to let me? It's wrong,
it's
but
not.
I'm going to let you.
It's not. Adventuring Gear. It's a 1 cost. Guess what? You equip it for 1. So anyways, it's got landfall. One of my favorite things. Whenever land, I'm sorry. Can I talk?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Whenever land you control enters, a equipped creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I've used this one. I like this one. Stop shaking your head. I can see you. Okay. It's not that bad, y'all. It's just not. It's a good card. I like it. It's cute. You can give your creature gear. Little adventuring gear. Think about that. Think about how cute that would be. Like, let's be real. It's not that bad. Do you have anything to say, or are you just going to let me?
I'm, theoretically, white block deck, you can play out the Helpful Hunter, give it Adventuring Gear, buff it up into a 3/3, and then kill something, fake your own death, and get it back. When it enters coming back, you draw a card again. I'm seeing the combo.
That's the first nice thing that he said about any of my cards since I put them on the slide like 24 hours ago.
But Adventuring Gear sucks. Never pick it.
Pick it. Next.
Do we think there's a balance among the cards of the set? So I think we've already talked about that pretty much. But do you have a specific thing you wanted to say on that note?
I mean, realistically, I think the balance.
Yeah. So
I think the balance between power and
I think the balance is there,
good.
but I do think from a sealed perspective, a little less with draft, because draft you're a little in control of your own fate of what comes around. But with sealed particularly, no, I think it definitely is a set that has some powerhouses.
Yeah. 100%.
And if somebody else pulls the powerhouses and you don't, you're just a little SOL, right?
Yeah.
I wish I knew the name of the card. I didn't put it on here because it's not overrated or underrated, but the 7, everything has to do with 7, you know what I'm saying? The Eldrazi that costs 7, that has it has 7 keywords, so it has like menace, lifelink, reach, first strike. Also, it's called like the 7. Oh my gosh, it's gonna bother me.
It is. Keep talking.
But
I'll look this
anyways,
up for y'all.
That's a card that if your opponent plays it and you don't have removal in limited, you're dead. It's just over.
It is.
You can look up the 7. It's right there. It's that one right there.
Sire of 7 Deaths.
Sire of 7 Deaths. I was close.
It has First Strike, Vigilance, Menace, Trample, Reach, Lifelink, and Ward. Pay 7 life.
Yeah. Well, and with Ward, that's 7 keywords, and then it's pay 7 life, and it costs 7, and it's a 7/7. So everything about it is themed around 7.
Which is cool. I'll admit, that's pretty cool.
It's a pretty neat card, and it's worth a lot of money, and it's a very good, it's pretty good outside of, well, that's a specific art, but it's very good outside of limited, obviously, but in limited, it's one of those cards that a lot of sets have where if it's just played and you don't have removal for it, and even if you do, you're paying 7 life, so if it's played after you're below 7 life, you're just SOL.
Yeah.
But if you don't have removal for it, you just lose, right? So anyways, I think that there are a few outliers, but ultimately, I think the set is pretty balanced.
I think it is too.
All right, moving on. What is
Foundation's impact on the format? Like we've talked about a couple times now. It's here for 5 years.
True.
It is quite literally, it's aptly named. It is the foundation
of the next half decade.
Yeah. Like 5 more years.
So how do you feel about that? Do you think it makes a good foundation?
Yes. This is such a good thing. because I joined Magic a few months ago. There was nothing like this. There was really no entry point for me.
That's true.
I'm still struggling to kind of like get into certain things, like finding a commander deck that I like and stuff like that, because there was no entry point. It was just like, hey, here's a commander deck. We're going to try playing. Mm-hmm. With a little explanation. There were a lot of questions I had to ask. This is such a good thing to have as a foundation for the next 5 years. Now, the hope is that Wizards of the Coast will actually keep putting out this product for 5 years.
Yeah, we don't
They
know
won't just stop.
how well stocked stores are going to be, right? Because
Yes.
your average game store stops having stock of a certain set, usually maybe 6 to 7, 8 months after that set's been released. By a year to a year and a half, maybe 2 years, it's almost never showing up. Like they might get a random box here or there that they open up and they sell packs for. And that's about it. Now, you can still find them online, and you can go to other sellers and stuff like that. But realistically, if this is going to be in standard for 5 years, it needs to be being printed and made and sent to game stores and everything for 5 years. Which does mean that if someone gets into Magic, they have, for the next 5 years, a set that they can go, oh, I'm going to just learn this set. I'm going to just focus on this set until I feel comfortable to branch out. And if that takes a year, if that takes 4 years, it's still going to be a set that they can do that with, right? If you're playing limited, you can be like, look, this is the set that I draft. I'm only going to go to my game store when they're drafting this set, and it should theoretically be able to still be drafted 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Yeah,
not 6, but
not
3, 4, 5.
5 years.
And so I think that that's a really good thing. And then when you look at constructed, they have a very good foundation for most constructed decks in standard, not Pioneer, Modern, those things. I don't think this is going to impact that as much. But standard are going to be built around these as a foundation.
Absolutely.
Because they're going to stick around longer than any other cards. And they're going to then, once it's been 3 years, everything that's come out for those last 3 years is gone, and this is the only thing that's still there. So it is truly going to be the only thing that survives a full 3-year rotation.
Yes. So, I mean, realistically, that's kind of the impact.
I think it's going to become a little bit more standardized, for lack of a better word, considering the format's called standard. It's going to become a little more normalized. You're going to see a lot of the same style decks because they're going to be built on these cards that aren't cycling out.
Yes. I mean, that's the impact.
As someone that doesn't play a lot of standard, I don't think it's going to impact me too much. But if you do play a lot of standard, I think it is going to have a big impact. Now, what does draft and limited play look like with this set? We've talked about it a lot.
Yes.
We'll just kind of recap our thoughts here. I think, personally, it looks phenomenal, and it looks like a good entry point. It's not hard, but there is a lot of elements there to master. And so it's a really good set that also allows new players to get into limited without really intimidating them too much, right? If I'm a new player, brand new player, and I open Sire of Seven Deaths, if that's what it's called, something like that, right? Sire of Seven Deaths. I'm probably winning that tournament if I have any bit of skill behind me, right?
Absolutely.
If I'm even okay at Magic and I can just get it, right? If I can, or maybe, I open 2 of them, so I run them as both my top drops, and I'm probably going to pull them at least once a game.
Yeah.
You just win, And I like in the sense that they have those purely because I like sets that I can go, hey, let's go and draft, or let's go and play a sealed. And I can say, look, you got a chance here. I'm going to not play my hardest. I'm not going to play my heart out because I'm teaching you how to play. But I can also play decently and know that you have a chance to open some really good cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's something we've talked a lot about because most of what we play. So there's there's a lot of content about out there about that. And there's something we're looking into possibly making.
Yes,
but also if... I mean, we are recording this on Monday. I leave on Thursday.
We
so
is more likely me.
Him. He will probably be, hopefully, fingers crossed. I'm kind of hoping to see this from him, but we'll see. He might be putting out some draft content.
Yeah.
Soon, which could end up being Foundations, because Foundations is kind of what they have on Arena right now. Because
that and Pioneer.
Yes, that and
Pioneer. They did a whole
Pioneer
thing.
They did, absolutely.
I think Foundations is always going to be available, though, because it's still the current set.
Yes, it is the set.
So.
But realistically, that's probably something you'll see a little bit more come from us about.
So we'll kind of leave it at that. If you guys want to know more details, stay tuned for a video talking specifically about Draft and Limited from...
And if you have any questions that you want us to answer about that, or want him to answer about that,
we can
leave in the comments.
Yeah,
we can answer in the comments. We will happily answer any questions.
I talk too much. It's okay.
So then we have our personal favorite cards and
if
just any last things about the set. So they're on the same slide. So he's gonna go first, I think.
Here we go.
I think his card's first.
Here we go.
It is.
All right, my favorite card. It's not good in limited. It's actually horrible in limited. But I did pick it solely because, as a huge fan of tribal decks, and the reason I'm a huge fan of tribal decks, for everyone out there that's like, oh my god, tribal decks, they're the simplest, most boring. Exactly. Exactly. No, but genuinely, they are simple, and that's why I like them so much, is that it's really easy for me to, being a established Magic player, but a new one, it's really easy for me to go, what cards work well in my deck? Well, duh, you put this in there, well, oh, it's a vampire deck, I want good vampires.
Yeah,
if it's a
absolutely.
dragon deck, I want good dragons. It's a very simple deck upgrade, and more realistically, I can build... Or I like the idea of building more complicated synergistic decks. But when I look at someone else and go, well, what do you want to play? It's really easy for me to say, well, the tribal decks are pretty simple. You don't have to try that hard to find good upgrading cards. When you're building a merfolk deck, you just go, well, does this set have any good merfolk that I'm going to want from it? Oh, it's got one or two of them. I might try to pick those up. I'm going to open a few packs when I do some limited. If I don't open them, I might pick up the one or two cards that are good in my deck. And then you move on to the next set and you see if there's any merfolk in that one, and rinse and repeat, right? And I love tribal, and this is one of the most broken, in my opinion. It's only like $4 or $5, so I expected it to be way more than that. But I guess it's better in a tribal deck that goes wide, right? In dragons, you don't want to play Banner of Kinship because you're going to have 2 or 3 dragons on the board, and now they're just 3 more power and toughness, but most dragons didn't need help in the power and toughness department. They needed help in the mana cost department, right?
Yeah.
That's what you want in a dragon deck. You want to make those things cheaper. You want to be getting them out quickly, right? But if you're in a goblin deck and you got 42 goblins on the board and all 42 of those 1/1 goblins just became 43 goblins.
Yeah.
I think you probably just won that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you probably just won that game. Now, it doesn't,
you could be playing against 12 people and you're fine.
It doesn't give them trample, but that's a lot of damage. I don't want to do 43 times 43 in my head, but it's more than 1,600. So, because that's 40 times 40.
I don't feel like doing it either. That's not happening.
Anyways, point being, it's more than that, which is massive. So you can imagine, now that's a ton of goblins. If you had 42 goblins in a goblin deck, you probably won anyways. But my point being, it just goes really hard. And I do love tribal decks, so I wanted to include it. I read it as a spoiler card before the set even came out, and I was like, oh my god, they're breaking the game. I don't think it breaks the game that much, but I am very excited, and as someone who predominantly plays precons as well, I have a lot of tribal decks. They make a lot of tribal decks in precons, so I'm excited to play themes outside of tribal, but it's such a good beginner commander theme that I love this card so much. All right, take us away with Scavenging Ooze.
Ooze. Enough said. I love my oozes. When we played, was it Dustmorn? Was Dustmorn that had my ooze that I really liked, and you kept killing him, and I was getting real upset.
It might be.
I think it was. If not, it was Bloomborough. Either way, when I first started learning Magic, I had a favorite ooze. I played this ooze many, many times against Nathaniel.
Was it limited or was it constructed?
I don't remember.
Because if it was constructed, it could be anything.
I don't think it was. I think it was limited.
I don't know.
Couldn't tell you. Don't know. I might be making it up. It was limited. I would play my ooze. Anyone know what Nathaniel would do?
I would kill the ooze. It was probably a good ooze.
He would kill it.
If you play Scavenging Ooze against me in limited and I have a way to do it, I'm going to kill the ooze.
Yeah. No, there were, words were said. Words were said when he killed my ooze for the 3rd time in a game. Not just in a series of games, no. A game.
I'd like to point out, for everyone out there watching this that heard the whole video, first of all, thank you for tuning in for so long. Second of all, if you read the fifth word on the card of the Scavenging Ooze in its details there, it says the word graveyard. And I can't believe that Ashley likes that.
We're going to stop him right there. I'm going to put his mute button on now. Thank you. Don't mind him. He's not real. Okay. I just like it. It eats things.
It's a great card. It's a great card. 2 drop for 2, like a 2/2 for 2,
Yeah.
is a great card in limited. Well, not great, but it's average in limited, right? And it's going to get bigger. There's going to be creatures that it can exile. Also, if you're going up against a graveyard themed deck, this just kind of ruins that, right?
It's perfect.
If you're playing
I
Sidar
love it.
Jabari, which is a commander deck that I have, a Scavenging Ooze is not something you want to see, right? Because
Nope.
as soon as you put that knight that you want in the graveyard, they can instant speed be like, haha, that thing gets
No.
exiled, and my thing gets bigger, and I gain life.
Yeah. No, love this bad boy.
Wow.
And he's a 2 cost.
Not to mention,
Y'all.
it's +1/+1 counters. It's life gain. There's a lot that you can do with this card. So,
You know what card would go great with it?
if you say
Doubling season.
it would go okay. It wouldn't go that hard, but I mean, yes, it does double the counters that it gets put on it. So,
It can get big quick. That's all I have to say.
it can for sure. All right.
What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts. I think it's a great set. I think it's a wonderful set for limited. I think it's got some wonderful cards for constructed. And I also think that it's about half or more reprints. So it's also just well tested. These are cards that Wizards of the Coast and just the community of Magic as a whole knew did well, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of those. There's a bunch of new cards that are themed around those that fit pretty well. If you're a fan of constructed, there are some busted cards that you know, are must-have cards now. There's the whole, Blasphemous Edict is a new just standard board wipe that people are going to run in every commander deck ever that has black. You know, all sorts of things that are just going to become staples. And then from a limited perspective, because I love limited, man, it's a good set to draft and a good set to play sealed. Well, I don't know if it's that good for sealed. I mean, honestly, the sealed is kind of that's where
Sealed
you
is always
that's where
a
you
little
see the power range really
Yeah.
harm the set. But I do think that it's a great draft set. I really love it, and I love the simplicity of it.
It's
If
just so
I'm
easy.
sitting here saying I love the simplicity of a set, and it's called Foundations, they did a good job.
Yep. We should not be sitting here talking about how complicated it is. And we haven't at all tonight said how complicated it is. I mean, it has been it's such a simple set.
Yeah.
Like, I just love it. I love the art. I love what's in it. I think it's just got good content of the types of creatures, the kind of synergy that we see. I just overall think it's a great
And
set.
as someone that can enjoy complexity, it's not a simple that I don't like. It's
No.
well, I can make cool things with this, and I don't get bogged down.
And I think that in all the times that we've drafted, we've always not necessarily drafted different colors, but drafted different things within those colors. Like, I don't think that we've ever played the same types of decks against each other twice.
That's true.
And we have done so much draft.
Yeah, there's
so much
a
limited.
lot that you can do with it. So,
Like, there's so much to do, and there's
Yeah.
such a plethora of things to do with it. It's such a good one.
well, with that, we move on to our final slide where we say thank you guys so much. If you made it this far, what's a good word for them to leave down in the comments? If they made it to the end of the video, leave I don't know.
Doubling season.
Doubling season. Hit us with the comment that says doubling season if you made it all the way. But for all seriousness, thank you guys so much if you made it this far.
Absolutely,
I know this was
thank
a
you.
long one, so go ahead and whichever direction it is, we would really appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe, any and all of that is greatly appreciated. And we want to know down in the comments below, what do you like about Foundations and what are your favorite cards? Maybe what are your least favorite cards, but we definitely want to know what your favorite cards are.
Absolutely.
So we'd love to hear from you guys down in the comments below. We'll see you guys in the next one. Is that everything?
I think so.
All right. Well, may the rules be ever in your favor. But until then, peace out, guys.
Bye, y'all.